Let's call it a night. We are on Radio Row in Miami, Florida, getting ready for the Super Bowl. Tons of stars, and stars that happen to have already been on our show once before.
And since you've run out of stars, now you're up to me.
Like,
yes.
Hey, you know what? We got to get you back. Curt Menefee, host of NFL on
No more
Fox.
stars are left, so now we bring in Curt Menefee.
We got the biggest. We got the brightest star.
Right. Yeah,
and
thank you.
You are going to be hosting the Super Bowl. I mean,
Pre-game is starting right now.
I know. You got 4.5 hours,
It goes on and on and on.
So this is obviously not your first rodeo. You've done this many times before. What's this experience like?
I don't know. We haven't gone through it yet. We'll find out on Sunday. I think every Super Bowl is different. Every experience is different. I think the difference between it and a normal Sunday, which is the question people ask, obviously it's 4.5 hours versus 1 hour for a pregame show. So a lot of it is pacing yourself, is keeping up the energy. But when I say pacing yourself, that pacing starts the week before.
Right.
You know, you can't go out every night and party. You can't do all the scene. You can't do all that thing and then expect to be able to do a 4.5 hour pregame show mentally or physically on Sunday. I mean, look, again, we're not digging ditches or saving lives, but I mean, it can be mentally especially exhausting.
Right.
So you got to make sure you get to that point fresh. And so I think that's one of the things is try and take care of yourself during the week and not go crazy.
So that sounds a lot like a football player then. It's like you're actually playing in the game. It's like your Super
my
Bowl.
My wife comes the years that we do the Super Bowl. She's coming in on Thursday this week. And she understands that when she comes in on Thursday, like I kind of shut it down after Wednesday. She comes in on Thursday, we'll do dinner together. You know, and there are a couple of like Fox events that we have to go to. But I go right back to my room but she brings a friend. They can go out and they can party. They can do dinners. They can do whatever they want.
It's like
because
perfect.
Yeah, but
you
she
guys
understands.
do Miami.
Exactly.
And I'll
she
do
understands,
my bed.
but that's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, that's how you got to prepare for the big game.
Yep.
And speaking of the big game, when we had you on our show a while back, we were looking back through your predictions, of course, and you did predict that Kansas City would be here.
Did I?
Yes. You said that they were
I'm a genius, that's
why.
why.
We were like, you're at least a 50% genius because you had them, but you had the Saints, which was actually a very good prediction because we thought that they might get to this
I will give myself credit in that I probably was one of the few people predicting Kansas City at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe I was jumping on the bandwagon with New Orleans, but I think you take a look at it, and I can't remember which week that was, if it was before No, I'm saying if it was before the San Francisco-New Orleans game or not. I think that game was one that I think may have tipped the scales.
Yeah.
Whether you're a New Orleans guy or San
October.
Francisco guy.
It was like definitely early.
Yeah.
Because I was watching my follow-up questions to you, and I was like, I asked then more about, you think they're going to get past Baltimore? Oh, you think they're going to get past the Patriots? And there you go. There you go, my friend.
So forget the NFC side. We'll just talk about the Chiefs.
Yeah, those nobody's. And pat on the back, pat on the back. We're going to get your prediction later on in the program. But when we had you on the show, you told us how important Jimmy Johnson was to the broadcast and just his insight, his personality. And it was such an incredible moment, of course, when we all saw him get surprised in getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. For you, what was that like watching it?
It is the number one moment out of all. I've been on the pregame show or the studio show because it was at halftime. But for 14 years, it's the number one moment I've ever had, without a question. And I think what was great about it, there were only 3 people in the building who knew. Our producer, Bill Richards, our boss, Eric Shanks, and me. We were the only 3 people. Even our director, Stephanie Medina, our audio people, they didn't know until 5 minutes before because they had to get David Baker, put a microphone on him, get him out there, that kind of thing. But they didn't want the secret to get out. So no one knew. And I think hopefully people were able to see the bond that we have together. Because it meant so much. It's great for Jimmy, obviously. And you see this gruff guy and Mr. Me and Mr. Hard Ass share some emotion, share some tears and share some emotion. You saw Troy Aikman do that kind of thing. But I think that shows how much Troy cares about him. I think on the show even, Tony Gonzalez, who went into the Hall of Fame last year, said it meant more to him to watch Jimmy go in than it did for him to go in himself.
Right.
Because we all care about one another so much. And hopefully that came across. But keeping the secret is actually cool, being in the circle of trust, I have to admit.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
But
Were
it was,
like,
it was funny because
I don't want to say it, but
a little back scene is like CBS did a similar thing the day before. Bill Cowher, who's another great guy, well-deserving, went to the Hall of Fame, and they announced it on the pregame show. Only 2 coaches were going in this year. And so Jimmy had seen that. So Jimmy assumed if it's going to happen, it'll happen on our pregame show. Of course, I know Jimmy's asking me questions.
No.
And I'm like, don't get your hopes up because I don't want you to be disappointed if it doesn't happen.
True.
But man, you deserve it. If it doesn't happen this year, it'll happen. So you're trying to play this game without giving away too much, etc. So we go through our pregame show. The Kansas City Chiefs game against Houston was going on at the same time. Our pregame show was a half hour before the kickoff of the Green Bay-Seattle game. And that game went long. We were going to do it on our pregame show. Because that game went long, we're like, well, everybody's watching the other game. They're not watching our pregame show. Let's not do it. What do you think about doing it at halftime? So we moved it back to halftime.
Perfect. That's so good.
But it worked out perfectly because Jimmy in the back of his head said, if it's going to happen, it'll happen in the pregame. When it didn't happen on the pregame, he said, I guess I'm not going again this year. And it was like, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, Urgh. So when it came out at halftime, it was a total surprise. Because it hadn't happened pregame, I think, in the back of his head. He'd be looking around, okay, is it going to happen?
Yeah,
when it didn't happen,
for something.
yeah. And so he's like, oh, okay. So it was a total surprise when we brought out David Baker. And that's, I think, where you saw the tears and the emotion because it was a total shock to him.
Yeah,
and that made it special.
It was such a great moment. And you mentioned just like the brotherhood that you guys have together. And, I mean, you guys were all inducted into the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Not probably the same surprise on TV, but...
But it's cool because, I mean, like you go into the NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. We're the first sports program ever inducted.
Yeah.
And you look at the other programs that are there, I mean, it's MASH, it's,
it's you,
Gunsmoke.
It's MASH.
Yeah, I mean, like all these classic
Friends,
television show. And then Fox NFL Sunday, you're like, oh, hey. So I don't have kids or grandkids, but, I don't know. I'll take my nieces there someday because I'm sure that's what they want to do when they go to Vegas when they get old enough is go to the National Association of Broadcasting Hall of Fame. But they'll see Uncle Kurt's picture up there.
Well,
Maybe it'll mean
do you have a
something.
jacket? Did they give you one of those?
You know what? Not yet. They're saving that for induction. We were waiting until Jimmy got his gold jacket for pro football. Then we'll have probably like a blue, green, multicolored.
Oh, that sounds right up my alley. I love
just there you go.
A whole hootenanny there. Okay, just take us inside the broadcast for the Super Bowl. We saw the Fox compound. We saw that. I mean, it's so great.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, I mean, it's they're my ex, and I'm like, man, you guys are doing real well right now. But hey, look, my new BF is great.
It's worked.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so but on the day of the broadcast, like there's like 150 million people watching you. Not to get in your head, but if I were you, I'd be like, don't mess up, don't mess up, don't mess up. Everyone is in a bar waiting for me to mess up.
Yeah, well.
Is that what goes through your mind?
I was okay until you brought that up. Yeah, but now I guess I gotta. So now you're in my head. I'll be going, don't mess up, don't mess up. No, the thing is I've always tried to treat every broadcast the same, and I'm being 100% honest. I started out in local television in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, when I was 19 years old. And everything I've ever done, I've always looked at, it represents me, my name, and my family. And so you go out and do the best job you can. And also, like especially when you're young, you're trying to start out and do this. I go, maybe 3 people watching TV right now, but one of those people could be someone who's looking at employing me in the next market. So you don't want to go, well, he mailed it in that one night. And I go, no, that was just that one night. So I always tried to approach everything the same. So to me, I at least mentally look at this the same as if it's week 10 or week 15. It's just a longer day.
Right.
And that's how I try to approach it, at least that way.
And you're approaching this interview just like you would the Super Bowl pregame
just like
show.
Just like I did when I was with you back in October.
Yes.
Same approach.
But we had a little bit of tequila that was, which actually was great. But yeah, you never know who's watching Call Tonight. They could be like, Curt didn't mail it in.
Exactly. There you
he's
go.
A pro's pro.
I try not to.
Yeah. Hey, you just got to make sure people don't notice.
There you go.
But you are promoting X-Tech right now, this snazzy shirt you got on. Tell us about it.
Yes, ma'am. I said, sir.
I am wearing a
suit.
suit.
It's the suit that threw me off. That's what it is.
I just have that kind of energy. So,
the thing is, like X-Tech pads, I mean, they're shoulder pads primarily, but they do rib protection. I think like Sam Darnold wore them this year when he injured his ribs. But you go into this game, and I think 80% of the 49ers are wearing them, 70% of the Chiefs are wearing them. And like back in the day, even if you look 10 years ago in NFL films, guys had the big, bulky shoulder pads. Whatever the team gave you, you wore. Guys now have a choice. And I think players are looking at it as when they're lighter, they're smaller, but technology has made them better. And if I can protect myself as a player right now, then I can play more games. The more games I play, the more money I make. The more money I make, the richer I am. It benefits them from that standpoint. But it's not just professional players. It's high schools that wear them. It's colleges. I went to Coe College, a little Division III school in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Fred Jackson's our only NFL player. Marv Levy, who coached the Chiefs. and coached the Bills to 4 Super Bowls. He went there, but I supplied them with a bunch of pads as well because Division III schools can't afford those kind of things. But because a great example, I was in the car with Howie Long yesterday, who, believe it or not, turned 60 3 weeks ago.
I wouldn't know. The guy doesn't age.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's like Benjamin Button, you know.
Right.
But like he sits around, and he was saying he's not able to sleep lately because his shoulders bother him. And this is a prime example of it can affect you for the rest of your life. And so you look at a kid who's 20 years old and playing Division III football or playing high school football right now. If you can give them a little bit more protection when they're working in a bank or when they're a father or whatever they're doing 15 years from now, they can have a better quality of life because of this.
Being more proactive to prevent these issues.
Taking advantage of the opportunities.
Okay, well, before we let you go, because you're a broadcaster and I want to get you ready for your big game, I got a couple questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is it's a word association game. Okay. It's very difficult. I'm going to say a word, and you have to tell me the first word that comes to your mind, okay?
Okay. Wait. Before we start, can I say 4-letter words or anything?
No. Well, yeah.
It's got to be family friendly?
Oh, no. I mean, you do whatever you want.
Okay.
I don't want to get you in trouble because they'll be like, Julie ruined Curt. Okay. All right. Football.
That's the first question?
Yeah. First word.
Wow. I thought you were setting it up.
Football.
Fun.
Chief.
Boss.
Referee.
Screwed up.
Controversy.
Don't want it.
Regret.
Ooh. Not spending more time on your show when I was here before.
Yeah. We'll put that all into one word. Change.
Good.
Halftime.
Quick.
Fight.
Good.
Nude.
Hey.
Injury.
What was that?
Injury.
Don't want it.
Beach.
Favorite.
Mistake.
Not many.
Drink.
Tequila.
Yep. Flag.
Salute.
Late.
Sleep.
All right, you won. That was great.
That's it. Wow. Why didn't we start with that? That was easy.
You know, I just had to get you ready for.
There we go.
That's called improv.
And can you give those questions to Terry?
You yes-anded it. Yeah. I mean,
see what his answers are.
Hey, you gotta get the neurons going for when you're in front of 150 million people.
There we go.
Curt, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure,
here
Julie.
on
Always good to see you.
The program. Make sure you guys, of course, you're gonna watch the Super Bowl. This is the guy. He's steering the ship. He's landing the plane at JFK. 4.5-hour pregame show on Fox and X-Tech. You know, you don't want to get hurt early on? Buy X-Tech.
There you go.
We'll see you guys after the break. More to come on Call It a Night.
Hey everyone, JSB here. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Fubo Sports on YouTube, or else I guess you could watch puppy videos. That sounds good.